Hi there, and welcome to I'll Knit If I Want To. I'm Andrea Mowry of Andrea Renee Knits, and this is a little weekly podcast where I try my best to answer some of your questions. Today I am wearing the Tessellated vest. This is the other part of my newest release for Rhinebeck, New York Sheep and Wool Festival 2023. This is our 6th year running that we have designed a sweater and done a big knit along, and then we all meet up on the hill at New York Sheep and Wool Festival, which is in Rhinebeck, New York. Everyone kind of calls it Rhinebeck instead of New York Sheep and Wool. So that's what I'm referring to when I say it. So this is the vest version. If you have ever been to the festival, you may know that the weather is not usually something you can count on. Sometimes it is really warm and sometimes it's snowing and sometimes it's that idyllic fall sweater weather, but we just kind of never know. So I thought this year I want something that we can layer. It was really cute actually. A bunch of my testers posted their photos wearing this as a tank top, so it will get you covered for no matter the weather that is there. Obviously there's the pullover as well, which is super cozy and a nice option if you're just not a vest person. But yeah, this is knit up in Moonspun, which is a new yarn collaboration between Moondrake and Spin Cycle Yarns. That is the navy that you see around here. It's the main color. And then I used Ghost Ranch in Spin Cycles Dyed in the Wool. And then this is Fua Fua, which is a really cool yarn from Moondrake. I almost said Moonspun. That is this really fluffy cashmere yarn that has a merino core. And I think that's what makes this one so unique. Most fluffy yarns that I've knit with always have a silk core. That's what stabilizes the fluff. But this one has merino, and so it gives it more of a matte finish instead of like a shiny finish from the silk. And it was just delightful to knit with. And the nice thing is it only uses one skein, I think, for all the sizes of this vest. So anyways, that's what I'm wearing today. I will of course link it below, and the knit along is in full swing. So there's a couple different places you can participate in the knit along. We've got a forum set up in my Ravelry group, and then we also, for anyone who maybe doesn't use Ravelry, you can also join in on Facebook in the Spin Cycles Facebook group. So it gives you some options if you don't use Facebook or you don't use Ravelry. I'm not on Facebook, so I'm not in that forum. But that is a great option to use. And then there's also, you can even just participate on Instagram. We have a hashtag we're using on Instagram to share all of our progress as well. So all of that is below, all the info you need. You can find either written in the show description or just follow the links. All right, let's hop to some questions. And then I have some things to show throughout the episode. So question number 1 is, I want to dip my toes into spinning but don't have much space. Would you recommend an e-spinner for a complete beginner? Absolutely. I think that an e-spinner is an awesome option. This is the Hanson mini spinner, and I love it. I've been so happy with it. I highly recommend it. That being said, there are loads of options. That one is on the spendier side. It's a really solid wood, kind of a little bit on the bigger side, but so much smaller than an actual treadle wheel. But then there's also there's like the nano e-wheel that I've heard great things about from a ton of people, that you can get for a fraction of the cost. So there's really everything that starts in the low hundreds up to the thousands. So it kind of depends on your budget, what you're looking to spend, what you want it to look like, all those things. It might be nice if you can try one out to make sure that you like it before investing. But I think that they are great whether you are brand new or a seasoned spinner. I love having my e-wheel. I do travel with it quite a bit. If I'm gonna bring a wheel, I tend to bring that. And then I was gonna throw out there though, now that I finally have learned how to spin on a spindle, I can also say Spindles are a great option if you have limited space. So here is one that I have just finished for Tour de Fleece this year. I am doing a little bump of fiber each day from the Spun Right Round Tour kit. And this is one of those all done. So a spindle, as you can see, uses very little space. It is also generally a much more, I wanted to say economic, I'm gonna go with budget friendly option when you're starting to spin. Especially, you might want to make sure that you are going to enjoy spinning before investing in some of the more expensive tools that can come along with the craft. Spindles, again, can range drastically in price, but generally speaking, they're going to be less expensive than any of the wheels, and so much fun. I did come to spindle spinning after being a wheel spinner for a few years, and part of me wonders if I found spindle spinning easier than I would have if I had started out on a spindle, because I'm already very comfortable drafting the fiber. So one of my friends, my friend who actually showed me how to spindle spin, she brought over her spindles. And here's another one that I've finished. I very rarely do just like a dyed gray, neutral, monochromatic. It's like black and gray fiber. Usually if I do something like this, it's just natural undyed wool. So that was a fun one. Anyways, she was also saying how she tried to learn on a spindle and found it frustrating and didn't really enjoy it. Then she learned on a wheel. And once she had the wheel down, she returned to spindle spinning and found it a lot easier. So I thought that was so interesting, and felt like I hadn't tried spindle spinning, so I don't know what it would have been like for me prior to learning on a wheel. But I do feel like my learning curve was real quick and brief because I already knew how to draft. So anyways, thanks Mel for teaching me how to spindle spin. And there's some options for you. So if you're brand new, there are so many ways to spin. So maybe check a few out. If you have any resources near you, so many areas have guilds, so you could look up guilds. A lot of places you can find used equipment. So I also think that's a really great way to start, because until you get in it, you never know. I'm super stoked that my tech editor, who y'all met quite a few episodes ago, Megan, she's gotten into spinning and has gotten bit by the spinning bug. It's so fun to watch, and I'm so excited. So hopefully you will absolutely love it. But if you have the opportunity to try out spinning before you invest, that is really nice. I learned at Port Fiber here in Portland, and I got to rent a wheel, which was really nice. I took classes there to learn how to spin. But I've seen Coats & Co. on Etsy, they even have a beginner spindle kit, and I can't remember the price off the top of my head. But it's affordable, and it comes with a spindle and fiber to get you started. So that might be a really fun way to just give it a go. There's great online classes if you don't have anything local to you. But yay, I hope you love it. And I'm all about all the different versions. I now love the spindles, love the e-wheel, love my treadle wheels. My next on my list is supported spindle. I only tried it for like 2 seconds, and I was like, oh, this is gonna have a steeper learning curve for me. But I'm excited to try that too. So there's definitely options for smaller spaces, or when you just don't have the room for a big wheel. I'll even say if you're like, oh, I'm so drawn to a wheel, I really would like to have a treadle wheel. There are also treadle wheels that are quite compact and lightweight. So there are so many options out there. So you might just want to do some perusing. Okay, next question. What a stunning new pattern release with the Tessellated Duo. Thank you. The pullover went straight into my library, and I can't wait to spin some yarn that I could use to knit it. I was wondering if you have or will be sharing any tips on how to select and combine colors for this beautiful pattern. So I actually brought out some of my swatches to kind of talk about picking colors, because this stitch pattern is so unexpected in the way that it knits up. So you can see this was my winner for my best. But basically what I do when I am picking colors for a multicolor project, especially if any of those skeins of yarn are going to have multiple colors within the skein itself, I usually start with that skein. So for instance, this has spin cycle dyed in the wool, which changes color throughout. Like you can see if I stand up, you see how there's like this yellow band here, and it shifts into some pink. And so this is actually the color I used for my pullover. This is Every Rose. So a good way to start is by taking your multicolored skein and look for a color in there that is only minimally represented that you like and you might want to see more of. So in this skein, I might pick out like, there you go. I might pick out some of the pink or the peach in here, which is actually what I did for my pullover. I'm going to grab it so you can see. Sorry for the big loud chair noise. Okay. So here's my pullover. So when I was looking at the skein and seeing some of the little bit of pink in there, don't focus on me, I decided to use my texture in this one. This one uses O'Dang from the Farmer's Daughter Fibers, and I used this Clay Dreaming, which is this clay pink, to bring out some more of the pink that is in that color shifting yarn. And then there is some hints of like the hunter green that I then used as my main color. So you can go high contrast. This is quite high contrast. And I think actually all of my examples I have, oh wait, you can also go monochromatic, which can be a really nice way if you're feeling overwhelmed. Monochromatic is always such a great place to start with any color work. You could do a really neutral palette using like white, gray, and black. You could use all blues, etc. You get it. But here's a very pinky one. I think of this one as my mica swatch. Mica from Spin Cycle Yarns is all about the pinks and pretty colors like that. And then here's a more low contrast when you look at the color work. There is that mint, but the other contrast color, which is also Ghost Ranch with this toffee, is really low contrast, which also works. And then this would be more using complementary colors. So this toffee has a bit of an orange. It's really dark in here today because it is pouring rain again. But it has an orangey undertone, which I then paired with blues. So this is actually like a mint fuzzy color and then the blue. So really what I'm saying is the world is your oyster. You have so many options. And swatching is your friend. You might want to swatch some different color combos, even just with stash odds and ends. You can still do a color scheme, a color theme. That doesn't have to be the exact yarn you're going to use if you're just trying to play with color and see what you might like. I have another pattern in the works, and I'm going to be doing a very low contrast color where the colors are going to be way more similar to each other and a bit more muted. So that's kind of the fun thing about the stitch pattern, is you can really play with the color palette going high or low contrast. It just is going to depend on your personal style. But again, I tend to like to start with the colorful skein, whether it be speckles or something like this, and I pick out something that's maybe underrepresented, and by then using that as maybe the main color or the other contrasting color, it helps bring that color out of the skein, which can just be really a delight for the eyes, if you will. So there you go. I hope that helps. Obviously, you can always pull out a little color wheel if you find that helpful. I've got one here. If you want to play with like contrast colors, complementary colors, all that kind of stuff, color wheel can be really helpful. It also, for me, starts to bring together like, oh, why did this work? Like when you look on a color wheel, a lot of times they have lots of little descriptions on there that you can read, and it's like, oh, that's why that worked out so well, or that's why that turned into mud. So it can be kind of fun to reference a color wheel. Andrea, I popped a comment on your video, but thought I would pose the question here too. Would you consider designing fingerless mitts or gloves for our wandering whips in the colder months? So I can't remember if I said in last week's episode that we picked a hashtag to share all of our wandering whips is the hashtag. But for those of us who are on the move with our knitting or spinning, really whatever you're crafting, if you are on the move with it, feel free to snap a photo and inspire the rest of us. You can share either in my Ravelry group or on Instagram. And the hashtag again is our wandering whips. So works in progress. But I have a lot of fingerless mitts patterns, and so I thought I would show them off. These are the North Country mitts. These use mountain meadow wool, and they have this fun little boop boop. And these are kind of classic style, and they're comfortable. I haven't worn these in a while. I'm like, ooh, I like these. Very cozy. Little, simple, textured. They're worsted weight. They only use a little bit of yarn. They knit up quick. So those were North Country mitts. This is one of my earliest patterns. These are the Midwest mitts. When I first started designing, I really loved playing with stranded color work. And if you can't tell, this is actually really funny. In 3 of these patterns, there are these kind of arrow chevron motifs. I really love a little chevron. So you can see that represented here as well. I already said this is mountain meadow wool. This is Knit Picks. I think they're palette yarn. Just cute little stranded, simple, little thumb gusset. So that was those ones. Midwest Mitts is their name. I'll link to all these below. And Take Flight mitts, again, can you see? It says like that. There, it's kind of focusing. Focus. There it is. See the little triangle chevron-y deal? And these don't have a thumb gusset. These are just really simple and warm. They go up nice and high. This uses Northlake Fibers Water Street, which they actually are not going to be continuing their yarn production anymore. So if you find any of their yarn, now's the time to snag it, because I think they're still going to be making some of their ready to wear items, but they're not going to be making their yarn anymore, if I am correct. But yeah, so these are just really comfy, long, keep you warm little mitts. And then last but not least is probably my most popular mitten pattern. These are the tinsel mitts, and this pattern comes with, I think, 5 sizes and 3 different styles or something like that. So there are fingerless mitts, there are convertible mittens, and then there are full-on mittens, and they're sized from baby through adult. So this is if you just need a one cover all mitt pattern, this is your pattern, because it just has everything. These are a little DK weight. I can't find my other one. When I was going through my bit, I was like, where's my other bit? So anyways, there's some fun options for you. If you can't tell, you all know I love my slip stitches. You'll see this represented in the Weekender, in the Suska socks, and the DRK Everyday Cowl. I love a little slip stitch. So just kind of simple, great if you have that one skein of pretty indie dyed yarn. So, and again, and you can even do them with like the convertible top to cover your fingers when you're not knitting or crocheting or spinning on your walk. So yeah, there you go. There are some mitt ideas for you, and I will link them all below. Okay, I'm curious about how you approach letting knits go, especially garments. I have been a knitter with a capital K for 6 years now and have some items that are no longer living their best life due to changes in my taste. I've given a couple items away to knitterly friends and have never ripped a garment out to reknit. Maybe I should? It scares me though. I'd love to donate some items, but I'm unsure what types of organizations, consignments would take hand knits these days. Would love your advice and thoughts. So I give a lot of my well-loved knits to my mom because she is a similar size to the sample I usually knit. So, and she's very knit worthy. She wears the things that I give her. So if you have anyone in your life that is knit worthy and wears them, that's always a great option. In our area as well, we have a lot of refugees that come to our city, and a lot of times they don't have enough clothing for winter. And so being able to donate any knits to people in need, if you have a houseless population in your area, especially if you live in an area that's got all the seasons, that gets cold, that can be a great place to donate your knits and know that they're going to be so appreciated and get a lot of love, and keep somebody warm. So you could also absolutely unravel and reknit that yarn if any of them are things that you really love the yarn, but the style just didn't work out for you. 100% you can unravel, and don't be afraid unless you steeked that yarn, unless you cut it, it should be fine to unravel. And again, that's the nice thing about being a knitter is we can reknit our yarn. But there are definitely people out there who would probably love to have some of your hand knits if they're just not serving you anymore. And maybe you have other yarn in your stash that you're excited to knit up and other projects you want to knit. Then donating them, giving them to friends and family, I think is such a great option. That's at least what I like to do. If anybody has any links to places that could use some hand knits, please feel free to throw those in the comments below, because I know that comes up. Even places to send yarn that maybe you're not going to use, maybe you want to de-stash. I know that, again, here in Maine, I have a couple lovely ladies that I have been able to give some yarn to, and they use it for a lot of donation knitting. So they knit shawls, socks, hats, again, to give to people who need it. All right. Last question of the day. Oh, and I meant to look this one up. Okay, I think I can pull this up after I read the question. I love your new Tessellated patterns. Thank you. And I'll be casting on the pullover soon. My question is about yarn amounts. I plan to knit the size 3, and it seems like with 2 skeins of spin cycle and 1 skein of O'Dang, I will have just enough. I have a long torso and think I will probably want to add 1 inch or 1.5 inches to the body. Do you think I'll run out of yarn? I'd prefer not to buy more skeins than I have to, but also don't want to stress myself with yarn chicken. I was thinking I could knit the ribbing 1 inch longer since I have plenty of my MC. Help! I don't want to run out of yarn. So, I have a couple of thoughts here. If it will super duper stress you out playing yarn chicken, I would recommend buying an extra skein, just because I know that can suck the joy out. But that being said, there are also workarounds. So if you are only adding like 1 inch or 2 to the length, then one, definitely keep your swatch. And you could use that to possibly unravel and use that little bit of yarn if you need to. I do always put in a little bit of a buffer to yarn quantities, usually between 5 to 10% per color, to use for swatching, and just also we all knit differently, so there will always be discrepancies. It doesn't matter if you and I are using the same needles, the same yarns, everything, we're still going to manipulate our hands differently than each other. We're just going to use up a different amount of yarn. Also, not every skein is equal. I know all of us designers know this, but some of us, like just straight up knitters, I don't know how much I really weighed my yarn pre-designing, but as a designer, you have to weigh it all so that you can get proper yardage for your patterns. So once you are pretty used to weighing every single skein of yarn, you will see they are all different. They vary sometimes drastically per skein, and depending too on the fiber, wool, who knows what's going on with those sheep that wool came from, what kind of dye, how that dye affects the final weight. There's just so many little things that go into it, right? So I always put in that buffer. I like to do 10%. Sometimes I'll knock it down closer in between the 5 to 10% range if I think that it's going to push somebody to buy an unnecessary skein of yarn that they're just not going to use. Generally speaking, I don't want you to have to buy more yarn than you're going to need. So, so you do have a little wiggle room there. There is a little buffer built in. I think that your idea of adding an extra inch of ribbing is such a fabulous idea. I really like, as you can tell, I like a long ribbed hem on a sweater. So I think that that could look really, really neat. Your other option too that I was going to bring up is playing with your sleeve length. So at the end of the day, the thing that you're going to do last on the sweater is the sleeves. So worst comes to worst, how do you feel about 3/4 length sleeves? Is it more important to you to have a longer body or longer sleeves? And these are generous sleeves in length. So you might even be able to knit them just like a little bit shorter and have them hit more bracelet length than like totally long sleeve. So I wanted to bring that up too, is you could play with your sleeve length since you knit those last. And just maybe as you're getting close, again, if you have a kitchen scale, it's so helpful because you can weigh your yarn to begin with. And then as you're knitting your sleeve, you know, you could even partition it off so you have half for each sleeve. So once that starts getting low, do your ribbing on your cuff. You could also extend the cuff on your sleeve if you want. You could do kind of a long exaggerated cuff. So anyways, you do have some options there if you don't want to buy those extra skeins. So there you go. There's my tips. I love your idea of just doing the extra ribbing if that would be enough for you. So it is going to depend on how much length you want to add to the sweater body. I will say too, if you end up with that extra yarn, hats. Making a hat could be a really lovely way to use up the extra yarn. That's what I'm doing with my Harlow hat right now that I'm knitting. It is leftover yarn from my rad plaid cowl. So, and it's similar, it's a fuzzy, it's a Surrey alpaca and some of my leftover hand spun. So that's always a great option. All right, so let's just wrap up here with a little yarn chat and then I will say my goodbyes. The last 2 weeks I have given y'all some really long videos. So if you managed to watch the whole thing, thanks for sticking with me. But I thought I would show you. You know, this has been a busy week. We've had family visiting. I'm getting ready for a trip. So I apologize if I'm repeating things, but I don't think I fully showed this to you. I did post a picture on Instagram, but this is my first skein from my processed fleece. Maybe I did. Maybe I just showed you the bats. Anyways, this is a 3-ply long draw. And I am just so tickled with how this yarn turned out. It's only a little bit. It's about 66 grams, 150 yards. You can see some of the beautiful little blips of color in there. I added a little sari silk to the bat and just some other bits and bobs from my bat box, as I like to call it. It's so soft and so like feather light. I can't even, it makes me so excited to do my other bats. I'm not going to be able to do them this week, but I'm hoping maybe it's a little birthday treat to myself. Speaking of, my birthday's coming up. It's a big one. And that means my birthday sale is coming up. So you definitely want to be signed up for my newsletter because it's going to be one of the biggest sales I've ever had because it's a big birthday. So definitely sign up if you're not. There's always a link to my newsletter in the comments below. And then as far as Tour de Fleece has been going, I have not gotten to spin as much as I thought I would. I really thought I would have my spindle project and a full sweater project going on one of my wheels. I have only been able to do the spindle. I've been trying to catch up. I've had a lot of work to do. So there's been a lot of knitting, which I can't complain about. So this is my one little side skein I did do on a wheel besides my spindle project. And so what I've been doing is spinning those little bumps onto my spindles. And now I've started to wind these adorable little center pull balls on my Nostapin. Is that how you pronounce this? I should have searched that. I love this one. I got this as a souvenir when I was in Australia teaching at a fiber festival, and I picked this up at the market there, and I love it. This is coming with me as I do a little little traveling so I can keep wrapping my little balls. Now, so here they are. This is like day 1, day 2. I also have a couple turtles from using a Turkish spindle. I managed to lose my center from this one, and I don't know what's pulling out here. So this might get rewound onto my Nosta pin so that I can, because I'm scared that it's going to be a mess. So I might rewind that one, which is a little sad because half the fun of getting to use a Turkish spindle is that your center pull ball is all set for you. So you can see in this one, like I can just whoop out the middle there, and then I have this one and I can just ply those. So at first, as I was spinning these and opening them, here's some more of them, opening them day by day, I just really didn't know what the colors were going to be. I didn't know if I was going to want to make any big skeins. I didn't know what I was going to do. So now that I'm starting to see all of the colors, I think I'm probably just going to turn all of these into 2-ply mini skeins. So I'm just going to use my center pull ball, and where's my middle to this guy? I need to be a little more careful about my center pull balls because I'm letting things get tucked up. Did I do it on this one too, Andrea? No, that's gotta be it. There it is. I should be paying attention to you and not this. Anyways, I'm going to make just little 2-ply mini skeins, I think, especially because I can do that. I have one of my drop spindles is a bit bigger, a bit heavier. And so I think I'm actually going to ply on my drop spindle too. I haven't done that yet. The drop spindle yarn I did finish, I plied on my Hansen, my e-spinner. So I think I'm going to ply these on the go. I think that would be fun. I did make a foolish mistake, so I'll warn the rest of you not to do it. I thought, I think that this rod to my Lazy Kate for my e-spinner is about the same diameter as my spindle shaft. So I tried just pushing the cop down onto this, thinking, wouldn't that be great? If I could just get this on here and then ply right off of there. It was a disaster. It didn't work out. I may have lost some fiber to that experiment. I know that there are other ways to do it using a straw and stuff like that. I was just, sometimes you get lazy and you just want to do the thing and you don't want to do it proper, but then you learn your lesson, right? And I learned my lesson. So not going to do that again. So that is why I have decided to just do these little center pull balls. I thought about wrapping them around. I have these little wool felt balls. I was like, oh, I could do that to create little plying balls, but I think I just want to ply these back on themselves. So a center pull ball just makes sense for me. These are all pretty well rested as well. So they're holding their shape really nicely. I think they'll be fine to ply off of. But that will be my next adventure. We will see how that goes. I still have 2, 4, 6, 8. I still have 10 little bumps. Or is that? Yeah, I think I have about 10 bumps left to do just the singles on. So here's my current resties. These guys are resting. So yeah, I hope that by the end of this tour, I have a whole sweet little collection of mini skeins to show y'all. Cross your fingers. I don't know how consistent they're going to be. I'm just very much using it as a learning experience, keeping my expectations low, playing around, noticing how the weight of my spindle is affecting each spin. Like one of my Turkish spindles is very, very lightweight. That was this guy. And I do think I spun this much finer. I think originally my intent was to spin fairly fine, and then along the way, I lost my way. What can you do? So I'm just enjoying it. I am just spinning to spin. I don't even know what I'll use them for. Maybe an epic, like shift cowl or night shift or something. I don't know. We'll see. So anyways, we have talked about getting another spin it to knit it, sweater knit along going. I've hinted at what that pattern's going to be. I am going to set that up, but it's probably going to be another maybe week or two until that's fully ready to go. So I'll definitely let y'all know once that is ready. In the meantime, the Attune spin it to knit it, knit along with Rachel is in full gear. It's been so fun seeing the photos pop up on my Instagram feed of people who are sharing photos over there. It's so inspiring, and I love that I've seen quite a few new spinners joining in on the fun. So yay, go you can do it. All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. I hope that y'all have a great weekend. Thank you for spending part of it with me, and I hope to see you back here next week. Bye.